My son abandoned me after he got married, then called crying when he found out I was leaving everything to someone else. My son abandoned me after he got married. He stopped calling, stopped visiting, left my gifts for the grandkids sitting on the porch unopened in the rain. Then one day his wife called me, not to check in, not to say thank you, but to tell me something so cruel it changed everything. That night I made a decision I never thought I'd make. Quietly, weakly. And by the time they realized what I had done, it was already too late. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is. I just want to know, I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps more people become aware of the reality of elder abuse. Now let me tell you what really happened. I never thought I'd live long enough to feel invisible in my own family. My name is Eleanor Perry. I'm 72 years old. And lately I've come to understand that silence can cut deeper than words. My son Mark used to call me every Sunday. Even when he was off at college, he never missed a week. But ever since he married Jessica, the silence started stretching longer and longer, until it wrapped around me like a blanket I couldn't shake off. At first I blamed myself. Maybe I called too much. Maybe I said something wrong when Jessica came by that first Christmas and I gave her those handmade slippers. She didn't say thank you, just kind of looked at them like they might have come from a thrift store. Maybe they did. But they were made with love. I stitched every thread myself. When Mark stopped answering, I told myself, they're busy. I clung to that idea like an old photograph, the kind that fades but you still keep because it once made you happy. I didn't stop sending birthday gifts though. Every year I'd go to the little bookshop near the church and pick out something for Marcus and Lila. That's my grandson and granddaughter. Marcus loves space and science, so I always find him something with stars or rockets. Lila loves colors. This year I sewed her a lavender dress with little butterflies around the collar. My fingers ache more these days, but I still got it done. They never sent a thank you. Not a card. Not a text. Nothing. Still, I wrapped those gifts up neat, tied them with ribbons, and walked them to the post office myself. It was the only thing that made me feel close to them anymore. After Leonard passed, my husband, I did all right for a while. But this past winter, my knees gave out one morning while I was peeling sweet potatoes. Doctor said arthritis, and the way he said it, like it was just another chore on the list of getting old, made me want to throw something at him. I didn't, of course. I just smiled and nodded and came home to my empty house and cried a little over the sink. It was my friend Mabel from church who finally said, "Eleanor, you need some help. Just someone to check on you." He was right. I hated to admit it, but she was right. So I put a little notice up at the corner pharmacy. Nothing fancy. Just a handwritten note. Elderly woman seeks part-time help. Must be kind. That last part was underlined. 3 days later, Maria walked into my life. She showed up on a chilly Monday morning, wore a soft green sweater and had her hair in neat little braids tucked under a scarf. She looked me in the eye when she shook my hand, and her voice had this warm calmness that settled right into my bones. "I'm not certified or anything," she said, "but I took care of my foster mother till she passed. I can cook, clean, help with meds. And I listen good." That last part stuck with me. I hired her on the spot. From the very beginning, Maria felt more like family than a helper. She never hovered or made me feel helpless. She just fit. Knew how I liked my tea. Knew which gospel songs to hum when I was having a rough morning. Every so often she'd leave little things around the house. A fresh flower on the windowsill, a wrapped piece of candy on the kitchen table. It's funny how the smallest acts of kindness can make a person feel whole again. She never asked about Mark, but she didn't have to. Some things a woman like me doesn't need to say out loud. She just saw it. Felt it in the air between my sighs. Some afternoons we'd sit on the porch in silence, watching the breeze roll through the trees, and I swear I felt more loved in those moments than I had in years. I tried calling Mark again last month. I baked a lemon pound cake, his favorite, and I even wrote his name on it in icing like I used to when he was a little boy. The phone rang 6 times and went to voicemail. "Hey baby," I said. "It's Mama. Just made your favorite cake. Thought maybe you'd want to come by and get a slice. I miss you." No call back. That Sunday I went to church and sat in the back like always. Pastor Gaines gave a sermon about honoring your elders. "A man who can't honor his mother," he said, "can't claim to be a man of God." I couldn't breathe for a second. I just clutched my purse and blinked hard at the stained glass. When we got home, Maria made me some tea and didn't say a word. She just brought the cup over, sat across from me and held my hand for a moment. No one had held my hand in a long time. That night I packed the birthday boxes. One for Marcus, one for Lila. I wrote little notes to each of them, put everything in clean brown boxes and left them by the door. I'll drop them off on my way to the store, Maria offered. No baby, I said. I need to do this myself. The next morning we drove to Mark's house. They live in a big 2-story with a kind of gate that says you're not welcome unless invited. I walked up, gifts in hand, and rang the bell. No answer. I waited. Rang again. I saw the curtain shift in the upstairs window. They were home. They saw me. They chose not to come. I placed the boxes gently on the welcome mat and walked back to the car. I didn't cry. Not then. They saw me, Maria, I said softly. They just didn't want to open the door. Maria reached over, took my hand again. That night, as I sat alone in my chair, TV on mute, I glanced over at the little wooden box on the mantel. Leonard's box. The one he told me not to open unless I needed to remember what I was worth. Inside was a letter. And an old copy of our joint will. Leonard's handwriting was shaky near the bottom, but clear enough. Ellie, when the time comes, don't leave what we built to people who don't love you. Give it to someone who does. I sat there a long time holding that letter. And for the first time in years, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I started praying every night that my phone would ring. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need Jessica to like me. I just wanted to hear my grandbabies' voices. I used to read to Marcus over the phone when he was little. Good night, moon, where the wild things are, all of it. Now I couldn't even get a simple hi, grandma. After I dropped those birthday gifts off and saw the curtain move, something inside me broke a little. But I still tried. I still believed deep down that Mark would come to his senses. That maybe he didn't realize how much it was hurting me. Maybe Jessica was just overwhelmed. Maybe they were busy. That was the lie I fed myself so I wouldn't feel like a fool. 2 weeks later I tried again. Maria was hesitant when I asked her to drive me over there, but I told her I just wanted to drop something off, maybe knock, nothing more. I baked cookies. Chocolate chip, the kind Marcus used to eat raw when he thought I wasn't looking. We pulled up to their house on a Saturday afternoon. The car was in the driveway. The blinds were open. I walked to the door with that little tin of cookies in both hands, heart thudding in my chest like a drum. I knocked. Waited. Nothing. I knocked again. Still nothing. This time I pressed the doorbell and waited a full minute. I could hear movement inside. A creak on the stairs. A muffled voice. They were in there. They just didn't want to see me. I left the tin on the porch step. As I turned to walk back to the car, I whispered to myself, that's the last time. It wasn't though. Not yet. That night, I sat in bed with the TV flickering on low and stared at the ceiling. I felt humiliated. Like a stray cat scratching at a door that used to be home. Maria brought me tea, but I didn't drink it. I just held the cup warm in my lap. The next morning, everything changed. It was just after breakfast when the phone rang. Not the cell. The landline. Only a handful of people had that number. I picked up, and before I could say hello, I heard her voice. Jessica. Eleanor, she said, her tone clipped and polished like she was calling from a boardroom. I stood completely still. Even the clock seemed to pause. I think it's time we had a very honest conversation, she continued. We've tried to be patient. We've tried to give you space. But you keep showing up. I'm just trying to see my grandchildren, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. That's exactly the problem, she snapped. Eleanor, for the children's sake, please stop trying. To be perfectly honest, they're afraid of you. You make them very anxious. It's best for everyone if you keep your distance. Afraid of me. My legs gave out. I sat down slowly, phone still pressed to my ear like it had grown roots into my skin. They're just children, I managed to say. What are you telling them about me? Jessica didn't answer right away. Just silence. Then, we're doing what's best for our family. Please respect that. Good day. The line went dead. I sat there for I don't know how long. The silence in the room swelled until it filled every corner. My heart didn't break. It ruptured. Like something sacred had been torn in half. Maria found me like that, still holding the phone in my lap. She crouched down beside me and touched my shoulder. What happened? She asked gently. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. It took me a long time to say the words. She said my grandbabies are afraid of me. Maria blinked hard. That's not true. That's not true, Miss Eleanor. I know it's not, I said, tears finally slipping down my cheeks. But it don't matter. That's what they want to believe. I didn't leave the house for 3 days. I didn't eat much. I didn't sew. I didn't even turn on the radio. Maria stayed close, never pushed, never asked questions. She just moved around me like a quiet angel. One night she brought me a folded quilt. Not one of mine, this was hers. It smelled like lavender and dryer sheets. She tucked it over my legs and said, "You're not alone. Not while I'm here." I looked at her, really looked. This young woman who had no blood ties to me, who had lost her own mother before she could spell the word mom, who had shown me more love in 1 year than my own son had in the last 10. And right then I felt something shift. Not out of anger. Not out of spite. But clarity. I got up early the next morning and called my lawyer. His name was Mr. Brantley, a quiet man with soft eyes and a deep respect for older folks. I told him I needed to update my will. He offered to send a car for me. I told him I'd get there myself. Maria insisted on driving. She thought we were going to the doctor until I told her to drop me off at Brantley and Associates. She raised her eyebrows but didn't ask questions. I didn't tell her what I was doing that day. I sat in Mr. Brantley's office for 2 hours, going over every detail. I made Maria the sole beneficiary of my estate. The house. The savings. The land in Shelby County. All of it. I left Mark a single item. A photo of us from when he was 10 holding the science fair ribbon I helped him glue onto a crooked cardboard volcano. I didn't do it out of vengeance. I did it because love should go where love lives. When I walked out of that office I felt taller. Lighter. Like I just walked out of chains. Maria was waiting in the car with the engine running and a sandwich she'd picked up for me. She smiled like she always did, gentle and full of hope. She didn't know her whole life had just changed. And I didn't tell her. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night. After I changed the will, I sat in the dark living room, wrapped in the quilt Maria gave me, just staring out the window at nothing in particular. There was no lightning bolt moment. No fire in my chest. Just a kind of quiet peace. A sad peace, but peace all the same. People always think anger is loud. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it looks like a grandmother sitting alone at 2 in the morning, finally done begging to be seen. I'd stopped asking myself why Mark changed. I used to believe it was Jessica. That she'd poisoned him, pulled him away. But no, the truth was simpler. Mark let it happen. He made the choice to stay silent every time she spoke cruelly to me. He chose comfort over courage. And now I had made a choice too. Maria didn't know what I'd done. I didn't want to tell her, not yet. Not when everything was still so raw. She thought we were just running errands that day. I came home and told her I was tired, which wasn't a lie. She made me a bowl of soup and sat on the edge of the couch, flipping through her nursing school brochures, telling me about her favorite classes. I nodded along, but my mind was somewhere else. I was thinking about Leonard, about that letter he left in the box. About his handwriting. About how even in death he'd found a way to remind me of my own worth. The next morning I got up before sunrise. I made coffee, strong and bitter, just how Leonard used to drink it. And I pulled out the photo albums. I looked through every one. I found one of Mark when he was 5, sitting on the floor with a blanket wrapped around his shoulders like a superhero cape. I found another of us at his graduation. He was smiling, arms around me, and back then I thought I had done everything right. Raised him with love. Sacrificed everything so he could have a better life. And maybe I had done everything right. Maybe that's not always enough. Later that day, Maria brought home a new potted plant for the front porch. She'd written "Welcome" on a small painted sign and stuck it into the soil. She said it was to cheer the place up a little. Everyone needs something living to look after, she told me. I didn't say it, but I knew she was the something living I was looking after now. It was hard not to feel guilt. That I was doing this behind her back. But it wasn't the kind of guilt that says you're wrong. It was the kind that comes when you realize how long you've lived giving the wrong people your best, and how scary it is to finally stop. That night, I sat with my lawyer's envelope in my lap. I almost told her. I even opened my mouth to say the words. But instead I asked, "You ever think about your future, Maria? About where you'll be in 10-20 years?" She smiled and said, "Not really. I just want to take care of people who deserve it. That's all." I almost cried right then and there. The next Sunday I wrote a letter to Mark. I kept it short. No emotion. Just facts. I've recently reviewed and updated my estate plan. Everything is now in order and reflective of my current wishes and relationships. You don't need to respond to this. I just wanted to inform you formally. I printed it, signed it, sealed it, and mailed it. Maria didn't ask about it when she saw me holding the envelope. She just handed me a postage stamp. I dropped it in the mailbox with a calm I didn't expect. There was no trembling in my fingers. Just a strange stillness, like I'd finally put the last puzzle piece in place. I figured I wouldn't hear anything. I was wrong. 3 days later, I was in the kitchen peeling apples when Maria's voice echoed from the porch. "Miss Eleanor," she called, her voice tight, confused. "There's someone here." Before I could ask who, I heard a voice. Jessica. I hadn't seen her in over a year. She stood at the edge of the porch like she was posing for a photograph, dressed head to toe in beige with sunglasses on, even though it was cloudy. Mark was behind her, arms crossed, face blank. Maria stepped aside, unsure of what was happening. Jessica didn't waste time. "We need to talk. Now." I didn't invite them in. I didn't even move. I just waited. Jessica's voice was low and controlled. "We got your letter." Mark stayed silent. Jessica continued, "We're concerned about your state of mind. These kinds of decisions can be influenced." It took me a second to realize what she was implying. "You think I've lost my mind?" I asked. Jessica tilted her head. "We think perhaps someone is putting ideas in your head." Then she turned to Maria. "You've been living here, haven't you? And now, all of a sudden, she's changing everything? Funny how that works." Maria's eyes widened. "Excuse me. You're not family," Jessica snapped. "You're an opportunist. And if you don't fix this, whatever she's promised you, you're going to regret it." I stepped between them. "She hasn't been promised anything," I said. "And the only people who should feel regret are the ones who turned their backs on me." Jessica's voice rose. "We will fight this." "You'll lose," I said. "Because I have witnesses, records, medical reports. And I've done everything with full legal protection." Jessica scoffed, turned to Mark. "Say something." But Mark said nothing. Maria was trembling. They left without another word. Later that night, Maria came to me in tears. She told me she had to resign. That she didn't want to cause any more trouble. That she didn't want people thinking she was taking advantage. "I don't care what people think," I told her. "But I do," she said. "I'm just trying to live a quiet life." He hugged me. I held on. And then she was gone. I stood in the doorway watching her walk down the steps with her little suitcase, and for a moment I felt the same as I did the day Leonard died. Like love had walked out of the room and closed the door behind it. But this time I wasn't going to let it stay gone for long. The house was too quiet without her. Maria's absence filled every room like fog. I kept expecting to hear her humming near the kitchen sink or see her reading by the window with a blanket over her lap. But she was gone, and all that remained was the faint smell of lavender from her laundry soap. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay in bed, eyes open, remembering how she cried when she said goodbye. How she kept apologizing for something she didn't even do. It took everything in me not to call her. But I knew Maria. She needed time. And I needed to fix what had been broken. I called Mr. Brantley first thing in the morning. He listened quietly while I told him what happened. How Mark and Jessica showed up, how they twisted everything, how they scared her off. He asked me one question when I finished. "Do you want to keep the will as is?" "Yes," I said. "Now more than ever." He gave a soft chuckle. "Then you've already won, Mrs. Perry. It just might take them a while to realize it." That afternoon I sat down and wrote another letter. Not to them, this one was to Maria. I told her everything. That I'd changed the will. That I hadn't meant for her to find out that way. That I never wanted her to feel cornered or unsafe. I told her I loved her like a daughter and nothing they said could undo what we built. I didn't know if she'd read it. But I had to try. Meanwhile, I knew Mark and Jessica wouldn't sit still. Sure enough, 2 days later I got a letter in the mail. Thick paper, gold embossed initials. Jessica's touch all over it. Inside, 4 printed pages of legal nonsense. A formal inquiry into my estate changes. Claims that I may have been manipulated. A not-so-subtle request for a mental competency evaluation. I laughed when I read it. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. They had ignored me, lied to me, kept my grandchildren from me. And now that they realized the money wasn't coming their way, suddenly I was a confused old woman? I handed the letter to Mr. Brantley the next day. He said not to worry. Every signature was dated. Every update was recorded. I'd passed my last medical exam with flying colors. Jessica could huff and puff all she wanted. This house wasn't made of straw. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about Maria. I'd left 3 voicemails. No response. I didn't blame her. They'd gone after her like she was a thief, not the only person who ever showed me kindness without asking for something in return. It hurt. Not as much as Mark had hurt me, but in a different way. Like watching a flower you planted get trampled by someone else's boots. Then late one night I got a call. It wasn't from Mark. It was from a woman named Denise. Said she worked at the clinic Maria volunteered at part-time. She hesitated, then asked, "Is this Eleanor Perry?" "Yes," I said, sitting up in my chair. "I think you should know someone's been asking around about Maria. Her background, her records, who she's been spending time with. Said they were from your family." My stomach dropped. "Did they speak to Maria?" "I don't think so," she said. "But she left early today. Didn't look well." I thanked her and hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, anger. Real, burning, pulsing anger. The next morning I called Mark. He picked up after the 3rd ring. His voice was tight, cautious. "Mama." "Don't you mama me," I said. "You listen, and you listen good. You want to treat me like a burden, like a chore. Fine. You want to let that woman lie on my name and tell me my grandbabies are afraid of me. Fine. I can survive that. I've survived worse." He didn't say a word. "But you go after Maria? You threaten that girl, one of the only people in this world who's shown me any real love, and you cross a line you don't come back from." I could hear his breathing shift. A little whimper in the back of his throat. "Mama, I didn't. I know what you did. Or I know what Jessica did, and you stood there with your mouth shut just like always. And since you love silence so much, let me give you one that'll last a lifetime. You are no longer my heir. Maria is. That's done. Final. Legal. And you've proven exactly why." I hung up before he could answer. For the first time in months I felt alive. That evening I went to the kitchen and made lemon bars. Not because I needed to eat, but because I wanted to remember who I was before they made me feel like nothing. I dusted them with powdered sugar and wrapped a few in foil. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I walked 3 blocks to the community center. I gave the bars to the receptionist and asked her to set them out for the kids. She smiled and said, "These smell like my grandma's." That made me smile too. As I walked home, I looked at the trees lining the sidewalk, the way the wind pushed through the leaves. I thought of Maria. Wherever she was, I hoped she was safe. I hoped she remembered the stories we told each other, the meals we shared. I hoped she knew I wasn't giving up on her. Because now I had nothing left to lose. And I wasn't afraid of them anymore. Not their money. Not their lawyers. Not their lies. Only one thing mattered now, bringing Maria home. And no lie, no threat, no greedy heart was going to stop me. The morning after I called Mark, I expected silence. That's usually how cowards respond. Quiet, then excuses, then nothing. But I didn't expect what came next. Maria showed up at my door. She looked thinner. Her braids were pulled back, but not as neatly as before. She had dark circles under her eyes, and her shoulders slumped like she was carrying something that didn't belong to her. I opened the door and froze. "Maria," I whispered. She didn't smile. She just held out an envelope. Her hands were trembling. "I came to give you this in person," she said. "I owed you that." I took the envelope but didn't open it. I was too focused on her face, how drained she looked. She wasn't the same girl who used to hum in my kitchen or talk to the plants like they were people. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "But I can't stay. They came to my job. They called my supervisor. They've been digging into my life, Miss Eleanor. Trying to find something, anything, to ruin me. I can't take it anymore." My throat tightened. "You didn't do anything wrong." "I know that," she said, blinking quickly. "But they don't care. They're loud. They're rich. I'm nobody." I stepped forward and took both her hands. "You're not nobody." Maria shook her head and looked down. "This whole thing, your will, your letter to them, it's become a war, and I didn't ask for that. I just wanted to take care of you. Not be dragged through some courtroom or the internet or God knows what else." I squeezed her hands. "I never meant for this to happen. I know, she whispered. But it did. And then she let go. Turned around. Walked down the porch steps like her shoes were made of cement. I watched her leave a second time. The first was hard. This felt unbearable. I went back inside and opened the envelope. It was her resignation letter. 2 sentences. Thank you for trusting me. I'll always be grateful. But I need to leave for my safety and peace of mind. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at it for a long time. Then I stood up and swept it off the table. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt something else. A fire in my chest I hadn't felt since I was a young mother defending Mark from bullies who mocked his stutter. That same heat came rushing back now, not for my child but for the woman he and his wife had tried to destroy. I picked up the phone and dialed Mark. He answered with a hesitant, "Hello? You broke her," I said. "You and that cruel, cold wife of yours. You chased a good woman out of her home, out of her job, out of her peace, and for what? Because you couldn't stand the thought of not getting what you wanted." "Mama." "No, you don't get to talk. Not today." He fell silent. Kept going. "I raised you better than this. I gave you every last piece of me. Worked double shifts when your father got sick. Sewed holes in your coat because we couldn't afford new ones. I stayed up with you when you had night terrors and taught you how to spell your name when the school gave up on you. And now you let that woman treat me like garbage. You let her lie about your children being afraid of me. You let her strip me of my dignity in the name of inheritance." He tried again, his voice small. "It wasn't like that. It's exactly like that. And now Maria, the one person who's shown me real love these past few years, has been bullied out of my life because you couldn't bear to hear the words, 'You're not in the will.'" I could hear him sniffling. "Mama, I was scared. I didn't know she changed you." "She didn't change me," I said. "She reminded me who I am. Something you clearly forgot." He went quiet. So I finished. "You and Jessica will get nothing. And before you tell me she's crying or scared or furious, good. Let her sit with it. Let her taste what it feels like to lose something she never earned. I may not have much time left, but I won't spend another second of it begging to be loved. I gave you life. I won't give you peace too." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from weakness. It was a different kind of trembling, the kind that comes when a door finally slams shut for good. That night, I sat with my wedding album and flipped through photos of Leonard. He would have been proud of me. He always said I was the strong one. I used to laugh when he said that. Not anymore. The next morning, I called Mr. Brantley again. I asked him to arrange something for me. A trust. Not just for Maria, but for others like her. Quiet women, overlooked women, women who gave and still got pushed to the edge. I told him to name it the Lavender Heart Fund. He asked why. "Because she smelled like lavender," I said. "And she had the gentlest heart I've ever known." He paused. Then said, "That's beautiful, Mrs. Perry." "It's justice," I told him. Before I went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote one more letter. This one was for Maria. I didn't know if she'd come back. But I was going to try. Because real family don't need blood. They just need love. And I still had plenty left to give. The letter sat on the windowsill for 3 days before I mailed it. I rewrote it twice. Not because I didn't know what to say, because I wanted to say it right. I didn't want Maria to feel guilt. I didn't want her to feel obligated. I just wanted her to know the truth. So I told her everything. How I had changed my will. How it was never about money or revenge. It was about love. About dignity. About feeling seen. I told her she was the first person in a long time who made me feel like I mattered again. I told her I understood if she never wanted to come back. But if she did, my door would always be open. Then I sealed the envelope and dropped it in the mailbox. I didn't wait by the phone. I didn't hover by the door. I just lived. I watered the porch plants. I baked a pie. I listened to the old vinyl records Leonard left behind and let his favorite song fill the house like it used to. A week passed. Then another. I hadn't heard from Mark either. Which didn't surprise me. Cowards always retreat when they lose control. But just as I started to believe the silence might be permanent, the phone rang. It was him. "Mama," he said, voice cracking like a boy again. I said nothing. "I just found out from your lawyer. Everything's gone. You really left me with nothing." There was not sadness. Not remorse. Just panic. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. "Yes, Mark. Nothing. Not the house. Not the land. Not the money. Not a single photo frame. He sniffled. But I'm your son. I opened my eyes. And I was your mother when you turned your back on me. When you watched Jessica humiliate me and said nothing. When you left my gifts on the porch like trash. When you made me feel like I wasn't welcome in my own bloodline. He went quiet. Then suddenly he broke. I didn't mean to let it get that far. Jessica said we had to create boundaries. She said you were manipulative. I didn't know what to believe. You believed the one who made you feel safe, not the one who raised you when your father died. That was your choice. And now you get to live with it. He began crying. Really crying. But it wasn't grief. It was grief for what he lost. Not for me. I don't have anything now, he choked. Jessica's furious. She said she gave up her job for this future. We were counting on that money, Mama. That's when I knew. They hadn't just wanted a slice of the pie. They had already spent it in their heads. I hope one day you figure out what you truly lost, I said quietly. But I can't help you anymore. Goodbye, Mark. I hung up. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't cry afterward. 2 more days passed. Then just before sunset, I heard a knock on my door. I opened it to find Maria standing on my porch. She looked tired but not broken. She held the letter I'd written in one hand pressed to her chest. And in the other a small paper bag. Thought you might be hungry, she said, smiling faintly. It's lemon bars. My knees nearly gave out. I grabbed her and pulled her into a hug before either of us could say a word. We held each other for what felt like forever. I didn't care who saw. Let the neighbors gossip. I missed you, I whispered. I missed you too, she said. And I'm not going anywhere again. If you'll have me. I nodded, eyes stinging. She came back inside like she'd never left. Took her old seat on the couch. Asked me if my tea kettle still whistled funny. I told her yes, and we both laughed until we cried. I told her about the trust. About the Lavender Heart Fund. Her eyes widened. You did all that? For you. And for every girl like you. I don't deserve all this, she said softly. You deserve more than you've ever been given. And I can't fix the past. But I can make sure you never have to beg for love again. We made tea. We sat in the living room. And I swear the house exhaled. The next week I took her with me to sign the final documents. Everything was official. My home, my savings, every last thing I'd worked for. It was all hers now. But she cried more over the scholarship fund than anything else. She said, you didn't just leave me something. You made me something. No, baby, I said. You were already something. I just saw it before they could ruin it. That fall we hosted a small ceremony at the church. Just a dozen people. I wore blue. Maria wore lavender. We gave out the first scholarship from the fund. A little girl named Destiny got it. She hugged Maria so tight it made us both cry. I still send letters to my grandchildren. I don't expect replies. I just want them to know I'm still here. That I never stopped loving them even when their parents turned me into a ghost. But my heart doesn't ache the way it used to. Because I'm not alone anymore. Maria brings me flowers every Sunday now. She hums in the kitchen again. She teases me when I forget where I put my glasses. She calls me Mama sometimes, and every time she says it, it puts the pieces of me back together. They tried to erase me. But I gave my love to someone who saw me. And in the end, that love, not money, is the legacy I leave behind.